Good morning. This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker. Good morning, Paul. How are you doing this fine Monday morning?
Good morning to you, Wayne. I'm fine, to be honest, really. A little bit of sunshine every few minutes is popping through, so not as good as it has been, as it at this moment in time. We seem to have lost it over the weekend, the weather, but
Yeah,
I'm quite acceptable to what's going on at the moment.
yeah. We've had pockets of this thing called the sun in Manchester as well, which is a very rare occurrence. What football have you been up to lately? What have you been watching?
Um, to be honest, I've been watching, I don't find it scintillating, but I've been watching more Arsenal than
Okay.
most teams, to be perfectly honest. But other than that, really, I've had to still endure Manchester United.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I mean, there's been as a United fan, some joy to be found in Arsenal's misfortunes over the past week, but they've still got
Mm,
a big game on Wednesday. Not completely rule them out, although Paris looked really strong in the first leg. But when it's one goal, we've seen anything
yeah.
can happen. Yeah, so it's been a while since we've done a podcast, but I thought we'll start from yesterday and work our way backwards. Manchester United losing 4-3 at Brentford, 4-1 down at one point after taking the lead. Many changes in that side, the youngest Premier League team in United history. A luxury that the manager can afford, considering that the league has completely run out of gas and that he's saving place for the Europa League. Calamity of goals to concede, really. Luke Shaw, I still don't know if they're crediting that with a Brentford lad, but I think it was an own goal as far as I'm concerned. It came in off Shaw.
Mm.
Delict goes down injured, and then they score from the header from that cross. And Bumo, who United are looking at, it crosses and they head in for the third goal, and then they absolutely slice through us like a knife through butter to make that fourth goal. We'll talk about the good stuff in a bit. Garnacho and Ahmad scoring good goals later on. We'll talk about Amarim and all that sort of stuff. But in terms of the nature of the defeat, Paul, if I know the nature of the defeat, I mean the defeat's one thing, right? Because you can accept that in the terms that it's a good Brentford side and that was a weak United side. So I don't think anyone was expecting United to blow them away. At one point, obviously, you get hopeful that they're going to win or get a good result after taking the lead. There's no surprise in the defeat, which I mean tells its own story in many ways. But considering the nature of the teams, that's not the damning thing. It's the nature of the goals that we conceded and like how quickly they all sort of seemed to come and United fell apart. That was the disappointing thing for me. What did you make of what you saw yesterday?
Um, It was to be expected, to be honest. The scoreline being what it was makes it a little bit more flattering, doesn't it? Really flatters. Well, it flatters Manchester United in certain ways. I always believed that Brentford are going to win that game,
Yeah,
even the team that was put out, I'd never really thought a Manchester United team could go to Brentford and win in the current climate and the way Brentford have been, and they're still at this moment in time, there's still that little hint of Europe
yeah,
in that way. They're still thinking that way. That's in their mindset. And with the way that club is and the way the manager is, you always they won't forget that. And I can't name you one Brentford player who's actually played in Europe. So imagine that they're hungry to go and to get a first for that football club as well. Everything just would be that they would be the greatest ever Brentford side. So those players want to be on that mantle. So it's always going to be difficult for United. But like you talk about it, it's just the way it's been all season. Is defensively has been too many teams are making far too many opportunities. The problem is when you look at it the other way round, it would be more acceptable if United were able to make as many opportunities and be that controlled when they attack. And Brentford were just far better at doing that. Really, that's what it boils down to. And it's kind of as it's been most of the season, really, would be going over what we said most of the season, Wayne, the way things have been. It's just one of them. You want it to get to the end as quick as possible, and if the end means Europa League final, get there as quick as possible. Enjoy the moment. If they win, great. But the summer is just going to be talk, 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 and the Europa League is going to be put to bed until the start of the season because it be talked about slightly prior to that because of the amount of money involved that could help towards getting a decent, getting a few players in. I'm not on about great players, just players who are actually going to play with their heart on the sleeve and show a desire to want to play for Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean the calculation is something like £100 million. So I mean, if that's what United's extra budget would be, then that's 2 or 3 quality players that definitely could improve this side. And this could depends on the judgment of the player that you're buying, obviously. A couple of things to take from the end of the game. I mean, if we'd have done this podcast last week, we would have been talking about the momentum from Højlund's goal, giving United a point against Bournemouth, and then saying, all right, that puts United on a decent footing going into Bilbao with a little bit of confidence. You're a big believer in that. I don't think is that really a factor this time round. I mean, like United have got such a strong advantage, and we'll talk about the Europa League in a moment. But I mean, going into the second leg, does it really matter? I mean, we got 2 decent goals late on, didn't we, from Garnacho and Ahmad, and the defeat isn't quite as embarrassing as it looks like it was going to be at one point. Is that a good thing? Does it really matter?
I suppose when you look at it on paper, it looks fine. Does it? No, it doesn't really. When you look at it, I suppose it doesn't really matter given how it's been the season so far. The fact of going into a big game on the back of a big performance doesn't matter anymore. I think really the way that United have been this season, Wayne, to be perfectly honest.
Sorry, go on.
No, go on, you go.
No, I'm just interested in, I feel like that's the theme that we've talked about over years, really, with this. I mean, your experience of playing for United has always been that's the kind of rule of thumb. And I think, now, everything's so rested on this Spurs game that likely Spurs in the final, considering that we've lost against them 3 times this season.
3 times.
3 times. And Amorim's lost twice against them down at Spurs, even though those games were probably a little bit better than the game that we lost at Old Trafford, especially the League Cup game. We were quite unfortunate with that one. It feels like it's, you know what I mean? The perspective of that, it's kind of doesn't really matter if we get battered in the other league games, really. Everything has to be put onto the focus for that. And it feels, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. In the past, I've said I don't think it's a good sign, but I don't really, when everything seems like it's focused on one game, is that really you know what I mean? Is it the way that we should be looking?
I think given how they are, how they've been, I think they need it. I think they need something to focus in. And to be honest, it shouldn't be that hard, to be honest. It's a European final. So they should all be in that. And for a lot of them, they could be thinking this is their get out of jail free card to actually end the season with winning a European medal. They think it's going to put to bed a lot that has gone on. I personally don't think it will, because the right people remember. Because as I learned in the time in joining Manchester United is the fact of everything is defined by what you do over a duration of time, and that's over a league season, and It's been absolutely horrendous. The only way it could have been worse was the fact of a relegation. In the way they've gone, to be honest, okay, they've finished well away from relegation in points, but I'm just looking at, when you look at everything else, it's some of the performances. It's just fortunate, really, that there has been 3 seriously bad teams. That's what's saved a lot of teams that from red faces about the way they've been this season. That they've been seriously 3 bad teams. That won't happen next season. Won't happen that to have 3 teams come up and be like that, because I think they would have learnt. The teams coming up would have learnt lessons from the 3, seen the way they've gone about it, and they'll be better. Not greatly better, I would say, but they definitely aren't going to be so weak as what these teams have been this season.
Maybe. I mean, we'll see. Because I don't know how much effect to the sort of the chasm that's opening up with because I mean the championship was barely competitive this season. 2 teams getting 200 points is even down to League One. A team getting 100 points. These they all open up mini leagues within the leagues now when it's maybe it's a drip feed of the Premier League. A lot of questions coming in this morning. Dan, we'll get to all these a little bit later on. I'm just making sure that they're all noted here. Dan says, looking forward to next season. What can we realistically expect if we make it to the Champions League? Justice for all the wrongs. There's 6 games in the Prem without a win. I don't care about Europa. I want Amorim gone. Which I mean, we'll talk about that now because we got another question as well, which is a serious question. If we get to the final, which we should, and Spurs beat us, how badly does that happen? So we'll get to that in a moment, but we'll come back to this one now. So before yesterday, I think it was 2 goals in 5 games in the league, but we scored 3 goals yesterday. 3 good goals as well. Before we get on to the point about Amorim's future, what do you make of the quality of the goals that we scored? Because I mean, that's the plus point from yesterday.
I mean, you can't knock it. I mean, they were good goals considering how things have been. When your goals have been a bit scruffy, not scruffy. I mean, you look at the equaliser against Bournemouth, that was scruffy. You look what Fernandes has done with important goals; they've been decent. But yes, but you still have to look at it. It's the bit, all the rest of it before, during, and after that is the main talking point. As good as those goals were, and the fact, when you look at the way the build up and what went into it and the technique, you have to say that was great. But we're talking about Manchester United. It should be about winning games of football, not about the goals are, Wayne, as good as they were and how well they were taken. It's still, again, it's just papering over cracks. Yeah. To be perfectly honest, no. And I fully understand what was being said there about the manager, about to lose 6 games without a win is absolutely shocking. But we're in different times now. If it was at the time with Sir Alex in this, it would have been horrendous what would have been going on. But I think we just look at football. We have to look. Football's different now, and not that I enjoy it. I don't like it, but it is that way now. You have to look at it with his manager, what he's walked into, and you have to turn around and say he is 100% working with players he hasn't chosen to be with. To be perfectly honest, he needs the opportunity. And if you look at when he went into Sporting, he took over a team that weren't his, and it didn't go that well. Then the following season, when he gets what he wants, he turns things around, and that's in that way. So if he can get people who come in who want to listen and learn from him, then there will be an improvement. The biggest question is he going to be allowed to be able to get him what he wants? And that needs a club. He needs a club to help him, because how are you going to get rid of people who don't want to leave, who still have contracts? How are you going to get them out? Yeah. So he's, I'll jump forward a bit, Wayne, but that's the bit that concerns me. Even if they do win the Europa League, the problem is what can happen next? How can you get rid of these people who the manager doesn't want? If they don't want to leave, because they know if they go, they're not going to get the same as what they get in at Manchester United.
Yeah, and that's been a recurring problem. I think the noose has been tightening on United. How many years we've been doing this pod together where we've talked about that third year where the manager were critically, all of them apart from Moyes were sacked before they were backed in that third year when they could have kicked on. Amorim hasn't had a full year yet, and we're already in a position where you doubt United's capability to. I mean, there'll be money to spend, of course that they will, and there'll be an ability to move players on and out. But how many of those will be seen as promising prospects for other teams? Like I said, it's a very different question. Amorim, that's 16 league defeats in the season this time round so far. Definitely scope for another 1 or 2 to come, maybe 3. There's no expectation on United to win any of these games that they've got left. It's a dreadful return. Not all of them under Amorim, of course. The manager, though, by and large, I mean, there's a few voices that are growing in voice in the United supporter expressing concern. Dave, who does the podcast with us often, is one of those who he's had a lot of doubt about Amorim early on. But by and large, he has escaped blame from the press as well, which is surprising considering how quickly they like to go in on the United manager. And for a manager who's been open to sort of criticise and say that this is the worst United team in history, as he did early on, I think he's been a bit fairer since then. He spoke a lot about protecting players for Thursday. He's talked about yesterday after the match. He said he sees a lot of improvement in the team. He sees that it's moving somewhere. And if you look at the data, I know football's not spreadsheets. If you look at the data in terms of chance creation, ball retention, the numbers suggest that there's a definite kind of growing familiarity with the system. That there's a growing familiarity with the manager. That they're doing the right things, but they're unlucky in certain moments. I mean, unlucky being terrible defending or poor finishing, which way you want to categorize that. But the data points suggest that there's improvement in the way that Amorim sees it. However, like I said, data isn't football. Football is emotion, it's momentum. And the flip side of that coin is you can say everything you want about the data, but you also need to inspire confidence as a manager. And how long can he do that based on what he did at Sporting, considering A, the number of defeats that we've had in the league, B, the nature of the defeats, the way that they've been, how far do you get down that road, Paul, before you say, like, no matter who you bring in, then they look at him and say, well, you've done a bad job here. You know what I mean? You've got to inspire us to win, rather than just saying we need to get. You know what I'm saying here? Like, it's all right pointing to the data points and saying, "Oh, we're doing well in these different metrics," but if the results don't back it up, that's the big thing in football. You can't turn confidence on and off.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Data is only used when people are trying to get themselves out of a hole. It's like the rope for the person who's stuck down a pothole. That's what it is more than anything. It's used that way because we can talk about data. I turn around and say, played against Bournemouth, and all of a sudden Manchester United are controlling the game, but Bournemouth had 10 men.
Yeah.
So data's all right there in front of you, but if people sit and watch a game and they judge it on what they see, not what they see numbers in front of them, the right people. It's only the younger ones now who are judging the games by data and not looking at the game. Because you need to see both of them together. Maybe see the data first, and then watch a game. That might be the way, and then try and pull it together and go, well, hold on a minute. They said he ran this and run that. Wow, he's run a lot, but when he's had the ball, he's been poor.
Yeah.
He's made it easy. I mean, I watch Euro, whatever, and he's passing sideways and backwards. So if you looked at his data, it would show that he doesn't give the ball away.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't ever he never tries to make a productive pass. Everything is kind of safe. So that's why I'm not a fan of all this data. I think it's a massive cop out, and it builds players into unbelievable. Jordan Henderson loves data because it made him come across as a great player. That's how data works, to be perfectly honest. So, but when you do look at United and you do think, where he's going to hammer in, how he's going to go, what's going to happen to him, I would have to say again is that we're waiting until what happens in the summer. How many players are going to be turning around and say they want regular football, they need to move on? I don't think many. How many are going to want to stay because they love the fact maybe I've been with a side that is going to be in the Champions League because of in hindsight, we're seeing that United are going to win the Europa League. You say that, and then all of a sudden, ego comes into it. Let's put Luke Shaw. What's Luke Shaw going to do next season? Is he going to turn around and put his hands up and say, "Done this and that. I need to move on and be somewhere where I'm going to play regularly all the time"?
He'll stay. He'll stay.
Of course, he's going to stay because he knows that if he goes, there's going to be more on him to prove himself. If he goes somewhere else, he's going to have to mentally and physically work that bit harder where he goes next because he knows that expectation and everything he's going to be questioned because of what's happened in his latter time at Manchester United. I don't think he's going to want that. So the easy one is stay at United, do your time, maybe even trying to push towards, a testimonial or something like that because he's going to have done the time, ask the question. So the manager's got a tough time. He's going to be in that same position of every single manager who's come after Sir Alex, of having people there that he doesn't really want. Yeah. And he knows he's going to have to utilise them because the way football is now, the players are going down like flies a little bit more now. You have to be seen as resting people, otherwise you're questioned for flogging.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough job now being a manager. You're having to appease so many people. The problem is people don't give two monkeys about you because you're always the first person to get blamed. So I feel sorry. Again, I feel sorry for them. Sorry for a manager in this situation. He's going to be in another manager. He's going to be in the pre-season. He's going to be looking around what he's got. He's going to be asking questions, and all of a sudden he'll get something thrown at him late on, and then he might then have to wait till January, and then everything, the snowball starts again.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a pessimistic way of looking at it. But the realistic way, considering the nature of the past, well, the evidence of the past as well. Interesting to say about Shaw, he did mention when he brought him off, it was to protect him for Thursday, which I felt was an interesting turn of phrase, considering that United should be comfortable. That should be all right. I understand we're down to the bare bones in defence at the moment, but we did the work. That was the point of getting such an emphatic result on Thursday. Is it enables us to breathe. I was surprised to see us rest so many players yesterday, as if we're on a 0-0. I rest Fernandez fine. He's played a lot of football, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Especially it makes me think that Evans not going to be back anytime soon, which is disappointing considering the impact that he made in a short space of time. And he's the natural person to play on that left hand side. You definitely want to see him given a chance in front of Shaw. Quick plug for my book before we move on to talk about the Europa League. Considering we're talking about tactics and ideologies, Football Taught by Matt Busby is available everywhere now. So go and order a copy of that if you haven't. There are discounts available on Amazon. Yeah, let's talk about Bilbao 3-0 win United on the heels of that 5-4 win over Lyon that we haven't discussed. We didn't do a pod after that, but I mean that was what it was, a moment in time. There's a couple of questions that we've got about winning the Europa League and everything like that, but let's talk about Bilbao now. What did you make of the win in Spain, and what do you reckon of, like, I mean, it's difficult to see. The pessimist in me goes, Lyon scored 4 goals without reply at Old Trafford. They scored 4 goals in succession. And Bilbao actually had 4 decent chances before United scored the other night. So it's not completely out of the realms of an imagination that they could turn it around. However, the blank slate of needing to score 4 goals to win Old Trafford should put too much pressure on them.
It should do, but at the end of it, as we say, the normal saying is they've got nothing. They've got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
it's like going in at half time. You're 3-0 down. The manager gives you an incredible rollicking. You'd rather go and rather get caught out by the misses rather than take some of the rollickings that managers give you. To be perfectly honest, in that dressing room, and you go out and you've got a choice. You're going to sulk about it, or you're going to go out there and you're just going to run, kick, fight, bite to try and get something back. And that's the only way. And if you don't, everyone goes, well, they had a go, they showed heart, they showed promise, and all those usual cliches come out because they've done this. Oh, they had a real good go, and the manager pats them on the back. And that's the kind of position that they're in, Bilbao. For Manchester United, it's be in this position and you're just sitting there thinking, so just one half to go. If you understand what I'm saying, one half of like 2 games to go, and you're waiting, and all you want to do is get it done because you know you've got an opportunity to play in a European final. But it's difficult because you know that first 5-10 minutes is so important that you get on top of the game. You actually go and get the first corner. You get the first shot on goal. You get the crowd. You get the crowd going. Not the crowd get you going. It's up to players to get the crowd going by showing your intent. They'll do their bit initially, but they're looking for you to reciprocate by showing your intent. You aren't going to sit back and allow Bilbao just to have the ball because you can be a half-average team. If a team gives you the ball, you keep knocking at the box. Somebody's going to weaken mentally or physically, and they're going to go and nick a goal. Yeah. So an early goal would make such a difference to any team. in that position because they've still got nothing to lose. Whatever happens, they're going to get patted on the back for their endeavour. So the onus is on United to show what they're about. They can't do it in the Premier League. They've proven that already. They can in Europe because they're unbeaten. It works there because of teams are lacking the tempo, the pace, the energy. So they're able to get through those games a lot better than the Premier League up against what we see as teams that are seen really as minnows, non-entities compared to Manchester United. They've run over all season, all over us. But you go into Europe, it's a different story. Those teams don't play in that fashion. Bilbao will have to play like a Premier League side to get any kind of joy, even if it means they go and get 20 chances and they don't get any of them. To get those chances, they have to lift their game, their tempo, and go far and beyond what they do normally in La Liga. Yeah. If they start doing that, it will cost them because there's a reason why defensively they've been quite good. For them to concede 3 goals at home, considering how they've been all season and in Europa, is absolutely amazing. And the team that done it is Manchester United, who have in theory struggled to score goals in that way, the way they've been. So it makes it interesting. It makes it such a good game to be at, to be honest, really. It's one of the, where before normally you think, the game's done, it's done, I'm just going to wait for the final. I think there's a lot of fans who are going there, will be going there, and knowing this could be a humdinger of a game because they're hurting at the moment. They feel they've been let down by a referee in the situation. Yeah, and that's it. Everything hasn't gone their way with the sending off as well. So they want to prove a point, but the point could be proved by United. The fact of first 10, 15 minutes, you don't allow them a shot. Yeah, and that would just take the wind out of the sails, Wayne. I'm saying it all, but enough difficult. Yeah, that's where it's difficult. It's really, really difficult.
I think the one thing that is probably working for Amorim is the all eggs in the basket thing. It's worked out so far because the performances of character and quality have come in the Europa League. So, you know what I mean? That's the evidence in which he has to build his case, really. And it's United are going to be 95% favourites to go through this but there's that 5%. I mean, they're two things that they'll be looking at. And the first thing was what they tried to do straight after half time was get a United player sent off. They'll be probably looking to do that straight away, target a player and see if they can make it easier for themselves. There'll be a bit of play acting going on in that first part of the game for sure. The other thing is the manager will be telling them United have lost by 3 goals 3 times at Old Trafford this season. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not out of the woods just yet. But yeah, I think going in from the start, knowing that they need to win 3-0 is a different kind of argument. And, like you said, United have got weaponry to take advantage of a team that overcommits. So, I mean, there's a conversation going on. Like I said, a couple of questions in the comments, but one of the big conversations that's going on is, it's come out of nowhere, really. Everyone's now complaining in the British press that the Europa League winners could get the Champions League spot. I mean, it's been there since the day. I mean, don't get me wrong. Holistically, speaking about the integrity of the competition, it's an absolute joke to think that 6 teams can get in the Champions League. It does nothing for the integrity of the Champions League at all. So the actual point I get, but the people complaining about it now, just because United are in the semi-final and have been disappointing this season, is laughable, really. I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, the point is, by all means, take it down to 2 teams, take it down to 1 team. I'd be happy. Take it down to the champions in the Champions League, then I'd be happy with that as an integrity point. But I mean, if you want to have it a bit more sort of open, 2 teams, the top 2 teams get to qualify, and then it keeps the standard of the competition high. Obviously, it's a joke getting it down to 5 and 6. Good for the teams involved, like Villa this season. It's been fantastic for them. But what do you make of this conversation that's been going on?
Well, it is a bit. I mean, even I've been laughing at it with people, and there is a lot of Tottenham fans around as well who are in themselves laughing at the opportunity for them as well to be in something where they have been awful this season. Yeah. Awful. and they can't believe it. But as fans, they'll take it and they'll hope that they can build. Financially, it's great for the club. It will help them to what they want to do, improve on where they've been this season as well. Gives them that opportunity. If it doesn't happen for them, then, and obviously they're not going to be in Europe. Then financially, it could affect them given everything that's going on there with the problems. What they're saying with Daniel Levy, United are very similar in that way. But I do look at this and I find it absolutely amazing that you can finish outside the top 10 and be in the biggest club competition in the world as such, as what it's been said as the best. It's just madness, really. But what you're going to do when you look at it, it's virtually the antidote for a massive poison, isn't it? Really, that's what it is for. That's how it is for United in this way, because the club has had a horrendous season. They've been virtually almost dying at the way the season's gone, just flaking away. And this comes along and bang, it lifts everything financially. It's kept the club going. It's kept the fans going. Otherwise, things on the manager could have been worse. It could have got toxic in that sense of the way football's been played, the results, everything. But I look at it now and I really don't understand how they're allowed to call it the Champions League. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And like you just said there, the top two sides go in there, and then that there's a little bit more it gives it a little bit more credibility. The team that's maybe been chasing the one above, you get something there out of it. But when you talk about it could be like five teams, no, it's 5 teams, 6. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. And we keep saying we do not want a European Super League. Well, there's already one in the infrastructure of everyone's league already. It's there. I mean, European games have been played, before there was a gap of like at least 2 weeks before you'd play them again. There'd be a bit of thinking time between, and there'd be all the chess match stuff would be going on. Now you play 1 week and you play them again the following week. Great in a certain way, but it tells you that there's a league going on already. Yeah. We've had to suffer the actual this 2 group stage, getting to where we are now, and this has just come like a just bang bang bang. The games have come, but the actual leading up to it, there's how many, God knows how many teams. There's like 30 teams in the league. I paid no interest to it at all. But all of a sudden you have to finish in the top 8 there, and if then was it in the Champions League bit? Then the next bit you go into the Europa League. I really not understand.
Not now. It was the qualifiers. No. It was the qualifiers for the next 8 were the qualifiers for the knockouts. So
because I didn't pay any attention to the bit at the start of it. Then we got Liverpool moaning because all of a sudden everyone was calling them the best team in Europe because they were top of the Premier League, top of that, and they wasn't happy because they had to play PSG. Yeah. The way that worked out. So if it had been the old system, there was in a great, they'd have been great because they wouldn't got anywhere near that. So all of a sudden they draw PSG because PSG weren't great in the qualifying, the same as Real Madrid. Yeah. It took them time to get going in certain bits. So on that side of it, I think in a way it worked out. It was like a league, wasn't it? In its own, like a domestic league in the way it was being worked and the way teams were going. It was over a duration of time, and it come through. So when we talk about United and them being in it, it's going to, whoever's been at Manchester United or Tottenham, it's going to be, I'd say now, but it's going to be, it seems like for me, that's going to be the final. Next season's going to be toughened because they're going to be taking a lot of stick.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Club, everything in football, every media outlet are going to be having a little comment about those sides being in the Champions League, and all you can do if you're a supporter of that club is smile. Smile and just do that.
Well, I mean, the point with United is that they weren't equipped for the last time they qualified for it, as could be seen in the humiliating performances defensively. Anyway, I mean, they attacked quite well and the games were entertaining, but good grief, they were embarrassed quite often in those games. Box says here, it's modern football, money, expansion, World Cup 26 will be 48 team, and it's already talked about the 64 team. Yeah, I mean, I know where it's going. I just don't agree with it. Grumpy old man shouting at a cloud. So just the questions here that will come to close the pod on this one, which we got right at the top. If we got to the final and Spurs beat us, how badly does that damage us? I mean, it's a great question. I mean, considering the eggs in the basket theory and everything that's been in there, and how critical it is for the future of the club, and the way that the club have embraced that as well in their own way, it's concerning, right? To say that this is a game like every game from Leon has been like, this is the biggest game in a generation. So it was the same for Bilbao the other week. Probably not so well. It will be if we lose on Thursday night. But if we get through to Spurs, let's say Spurs in the final, then there's going to be that conversation again that this is the biggest game in a generation. Now, I know that there's been that kind of talk, well, lads, it's Spurs kind of thing, but that's dangerous considering Spurs have got that record against us. I've been the optimist trying to say, like, well, remember in 94 when we lost Chelsea twice in the league and we win them in the cup final. 96, we didn't beat Liverpool in the league and we beat them in the cup final. So you try and draw the positive thing, but football's cyclical, things change. That's not always the rule that you lose games. You lose games for a reason. And Spurs have been better than us in those games. You can't contest, and they are an embarrassing low position for themselves, but they're still above United in the table. So they've been a better side than United, and it's not an ideal position for United to be in if they were to lose that game, right? I mean, you said about being embarrassing next season, like the tag of winning this competition, but the tag of losing it for the summer. Especially for United, would be one that they cannot really. It's not one you want to visualize at the moment.
No, I can only speak on one side and just say, we don't want to jump it or anything, but if and when they get to the final, they have to win it.
Yeah.
They have to win it, whoever they play, because we have to say that Spurs let themselves down by conceding the goal. They're playing on a plastic pitch. They go and score, Bodo go and score early, game on. Simple as that, game on again. They didn't make it easy for Inter over two legs. They won the first leg at home, and they didn't make it easy for them when they went to the San Siro either. So we have to say that one isn't guaranteed at the moment. But whoever, doesn't matter who they play, if Manchester United get to the final, they have to win it. It's as simple as that. They can't suffer any more embarrassment. That's the way you've got to look at it. Whoever they play in the final, they would be expected to win it, regardless of their poor season. Manchester United go to finals. They're expected to win.
Yeah. Dan says there, and this is what we'll close on this week. He says, looking forward to next season. If we made it into Champions League, what can we realistically expect? I mean, I feel like the conversation has been so much focused about that £100 million that it barely matters what we do in the competition. You know what I mean? You could lose all the 8 or 10 games or whatever it is, 8 games in the group stages. I mean, I'm not saying that's what United would want, but I think everything's focused on the money rather than the idea of competing, because United are in nowhere near a condition to compete in the Champions League. So that it tells you two things, right? That it is about the money, but it can't be about competing. I mean, United aren't going to be there just to make up the numbers, but it could be embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it could be. Again, it all depends on what they try and do during the summer. Maybe getting to that might make them think about where they're going to go next, just to be able to compete in it, not to talk about winning it a million miles away. I don't think it can happen, anything like that. I think anything can happen like that. Then we're talking about something in the same way as Nottingham Forest getting promoted and then winning the league, winning the first division the following season, and then winning the Champions League. Sorry, winning the European Cup.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Which can that happen again in football? I don't know, but United, it is about if they were to go and do it and then get to the Champions League stage, they need to and need to big changes. Otherwise, it could be seriously embarrassing. It would suggest that the club hasn't stepped forward, which would say a lot, really, if that was to happen.
Amorim is our Cluffy. Wouldn't mind that. I mean, the last thing is we play West Ham next week. West Ham very, very lucky, aren't they, that they've got this? They went to Spurs on the back of them resting loads of players. Now they're going to play United. Oh, sorry, they play at home. Either way, they played Spurs on the back of them resting loads of players. They're going to be doing that against United as well. United will probably heavily rotate, but an opportunity for West Ham to get a result at Old Trafford.
Yeah, like a lot of other teams as well. West Ham are one of those teams that go into Old Trafford generally always means that they're going to get beat. That's the way they've had a few moments. I think there was a cup game and there was a game when Tevez scored as well, wasn't there? I remember.
Yeah,
Di Canio scored a goal and then Tevez done it as well. I think I think he was a West Ham player as well then, wasn't he, when he done that, Tevez? Yeah. So we have to say you can't rule it out, but given how West Ham are this season, my wife is West Ham daft, and even if I turn around and say to her and I do my predictions, what do you think? She'd virtually tell me, don't put West Ham to win. And I could come out and say, but they're playing United at Old Trafford. There's got to be a chance. She'd still be negative about them. That's the way they've been this season. So I still think the manager still has to think. He still has to believe and still wants to try his best to win games. You can't just do that. Go out there and expect that people have travelled, doesn't matter where they've come from, and just expecting to get beat. You've got to go out there and, prove that you want to win games of football. And when you do look at him, you know that he wants to win. You can see he's bothered. You can see it the way he is, that it's bothering him, and it must bother him from what he had last season. And all of a sudden he's just gone, all the other, back to the other side and just grim. He must be seriously hurting inside, and every time when he's mostly been back home to Portugal over this last few months, when he jumps off the plane and he sees football people, he mostly just wants to hang his head. At a time, he must be really, really low. As a player, I certainly wouldn't love it. I mean, I've been relegated once in my life, and that's when I was at Fulham, and I was 19, something like that, and it was a horrible feeling. Every time you're coming back from games back and you get off the coach and there's be a few supporters there and you feel low as a player. But as a manager, that side of it, he's got to be hurting inside, because he's mostly got everything about, he's got a high opinion about himself. He's mostly saw himself up there when he arrived to the biggest club in the world from where he'd been. And it's a massive kick in the teeth to him at this moment.
Yeah, and there's going to be that element of if we get through to the final, hopefully we do, there's still places in that team to be played for. Do you know what I mean? So that's the message. You'll want to end the season with a good run of results. It's funny to think the West Ham game back down in London is the one that started the entire mess of this season, really. Well, I say it started. It started with defeats to Liverpool and Spurs, really, and Ten Hag not really getting his head out. But I mean, you think about that refereeing decision at West Ham, which was unbelievably cataclysmic for everyone involved in that. Just crazy to think how much has happened since then. Even for West Ham, just another season where they thought they were going to kick on and just sort of struggling again. But yeah, they've definitely got as good a chance as they ever have of winning at Old Trafford since Tevez. Have they not won at Old Trafford since then? Would it be? They must have been pretty much the only team to have not cashed in at Old Trafford since Ferguson retired, if that's the case. They say, like, they looked at the records and they go, like, it was 30 years without a win for West Brom, or it was like 30.
Oh, God, those are days.
I bet West Ham might be the only team not to have done it since then.
It's another double, isn't it? If they were, it was another team to do the double. Is that right?
Yeah. There was Bournemouth were close to it last week. I'm just going to double check now. West Ham while I'm on the podcast, so I'm not delivering this one later. Just checking the results against West Ham at Old Trafford. By the way, I'm using mufcinfo.com, which is the best website for stats. Oh no, they won against us in 2021. Manuel Lanzini scored after 9 minutes. Was that might be League Cup? Might have been League Cup. It was League Cup. So the last league win at Old Trafford was Tevez. Yeah, there you go. And that was in 2007, obviously. So yeah, they've won once in the League Cup, but the rest of the time has been United winning and a couple of draws in there as well. So the omens are on United's side, but obviously that means that West Ham are due one.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be back next week talking about 2 United wins, even though I've given all the possible omens was to be talking about 2 defeats next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will be back next week. Stay safe, stay well.